Wow, 20,000 subscribers. I don't want to dwell too much on this at the start, but 10,000 was like the best case scenario in my mind when I started, and we're only like 2 years in, thanks to everyone who made this possible. In 2020, I did a video called The Disappearance of Ms. PacMan, which is probably the most responsible for my current reality. It's gotten a ton of lovely comments, with the most common sentiment easily being, "Why do you say Ms. PacMan, you stupid idiot? She's married, so call her Ms. She goes by Ms. She's a feminist. You're a loser. Loser said the wrong name. Keep losing, loser." Okay, so maybe I'm sensationalizing this a bit. A lot of the comments pointing this out were actually very nice, but a lot of them were outright exasperated that I didn't know the basic elementary school difference between Ms. and Miss. Two different words with different pronunciations. And I've got to be completely honest, it's true. I didn't know. And a lot of the friends I told about it didn't know either. So I thought, to celebrate this milestone, it would be fun to set the record straight and teach any other misguided souls how to say the name of a character Namco doesn't even use anymore. There might even be some theory crafting if you ask nicely. We'll get there. Now, the history of both terms is murky, but to my understanding, we originally had Miss and Mrs., both derived from the term mistress. Mistress used to refer to a woman of high status, but it doesn't really anymore, so okay, makes sense. Mrs. refers to a married woman, and Miss refers to an unmarried woman. But isn't that a little archaic? I mean, men just have Mr. Is it important to know whether or not a woman is married? Besides, what if you don't know, you know? Some unnamed legend had this thought in 1901, proposing a solution in the Massachusetts newspaper, the Springfield Sunday Republican.
There is a void in the English language, which, with some diffidence, we undertake to fill. Everyone has been put in an embarrassing position by ignorance of the status of some women. To call a maiden Mrs. is only a shade worse than to insult a matron with the inferior title Miss. Yet it is not always easy to know the facts. Now clearly what is needed is a more comprehensive term, which does homage to the sex without expressing any views as to their domestic situation. And what could be more simpler and more logical than have the retention of what the two doubtful terms have in common? The abbreviation MS is simple, it is easy to write, and the person concerned can translate it properly according to the circumstances. For oral use, it might be rendered as Ms., which would be a close parallel to the practice long universal in many bucolic regions, where a slurred Miss does duty for Miss and Mrs. alike.
So we have ourselves a neutral term. You can write it like this, MS period, but it can be said either as a Ms. or as a Miss. That's a little confusing though, isn't it? If you say Miss with your chest, that lady's not married, but if you slur it a little, then who's to say, you know? The term didn't really enter widespread use until the late 60s, early 70s, during the second wave feminist movement. The story goes that civil rights activist Sheila Michaels brought the term up during a radio interview in 1969. A friend of fellow political activist Gloria Steinem heard this and ended up suggesting it to her as the title of a magazine she was working on. Ms. Magazine then entered print in 1972. This put Ms. on the map. In fact, the US government printing office started allowing Ms. to be used in official government documents in February of 1972, only a month after the magazine began publication. By this point, Ms. seems to have prevailed as the preferred pronunciation, although the slurred Miss is still not incorrect. Let's fast forward to 1981. The company GCC, or General Computer Corporation for long, is hard at work. You see, they made a modification of the game Pac-Man called Crazy Auto, and then they pitched it to Midway. When Midway picked it up, they wanted to swap the crazy main dude for the little yellow hockey puck dude, changing the name to Super Pac-Man. But according to Doug McRae, a programmer and chairman of GCC, inspiration struck the team when looking at the intermission sequences of Auto. Specifically, there was a scene where Auto meets a red female Auto, and there's a heart. Eventually, they chase each other, and a stork brings them a baby. The team at GCC thought that this compelling romance subplot was strong enough to bring over to the Pac-Man universe. According to another programmer, Steve Golson, the idea to make this female Pac person the main character came from Midway's vice president of marketing, Stan Jarocki. The original Pac-Man was very popular with girls and women at a time when arcades were more male-dominated, so Jarocki figured giving the game a female protagonist would serve as something of a thank you to the original game's female audience. What to call her, though? Well, how about we just call her Miss Pac-Man? That sounds good, but wait, uh-oh, problem.
Fairly quickly, someone realized, oh my gosh, she has a baby. We cannot have her be Miss Pac-Man. you know, out of wedlock video game birth. No.
So she's married now, or is she? We'll keep it ambiguous with Ms. Excellent. All the promotional material I can find for the original game is consistent with this, so I'll fully admit my fault here.
Roy Rogers' new Ms. PacMan matching ticket game.
Atari introduces the Woman of the Year, Ms. PacMan.
The intent is clearly Ms., even if you're Australian. But what about the games themselves? Obviously, the original Ms. PacMan doesn't have spoken dialogue, and the only other Pac-Man title produced by GCC doesn't either. So it's up to Namco's jurisdiction at this point. As far as I can tell, it's always written as Ms. PacMan, so that's consistent. Ms. PacMan Maze Madness features her name being said aloud in the final cutscene, and yep, Professor Pac knows his honorifics.
Thanks to Ms. PacMan, the princess has been found.
I was curious about the Japanese version since the original game didn't come out over there, and after some digging, I'm happy to report that the pronunciation stays the same.
Ms. PacMan のおかげで姫様がこうして戻ってきたし。
Pac-Man World 3 is even more explicit. Clyde refers to our circular heroine as Mrs. Munchie, to which she corrects him. It's Ms. So that's a wrap. I made a silly mistake in that video and I got called out on it. Well, I'm happy to have been able to set the record straight. This is Jonii signing out.
Ms. PacMan. Huh? Ms. PacMan.
Details of my sector's energy should be between me and Miss Pac. Thank you very much.
We're, not done yet. So far, I've neglected to talk about the 80s Hanna-Barbera cartoon. It usually opts to take a third option by giving Ms. Pac the nickname Pepper, but when her name is said aloud, it's usually as Ms.
No spiders, just your garden variety Ms. PacMan.
The way she says it in Christmas Comes to Pac-Land definitely made me raise an eyebrow, though.
Ms. PacMan, but you can call me Pepper.
But that's just a silly cartoon show. No Namco-developed game has ever—
Ms. PacMan.
Namco Museum Volume 3 has this song playing in the Ms. PacMan room while she does whatever it is I'm looking at right now, and I have to say, this one's kinda shaky. I think it's more of the slurred miss than anything, which means that we're probably still okay.
When we made the new Ms. PacMan Maze Madness, first we needed a maze, not a lame maze.
Another instance of the slurred miss is this US commercial for Maze Madness, which was actually one of the big inspirations for making this video. I'd been told it was Ms, and then I heard Miss. I had to get to the bottom of it. I am pretty sure this is still Ms though, just pronounced the other way. As long as the mazes aren't lame and the bad guys aren't too creepy, I think we're good. 2005, however, is the year that our society's very foundation collapsed in on itself. Metaphorically. You see, Mario Kart Arcade GP came out that year. Namco made that one and threw in some Pac-Man characters as guests. Every character in this game says their name out loud when you pick them.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
Ms. PacMan.
I don't know who's responsible for this. The voice actors and voice directors are all uncredited, but it sounds pretty clear to me. This means we now have a canonical example of her referring to herself in an incorrect way. Mario Kart Arcade GP2 from 2007 also has Ms. PacMan in it, and it reuses the same voice clips, so naturally the pronunciation bleeds over.
Ms. PacMan.
Mario Kart Arcade GP2 is more unusual than it may initially seem, though. See, unlike any other Mario Kart game I've ever heard of, this one has an announcer, and he says Ms. PacMan.
Today's favorite is Ms. PacMan.
Sending some real mixed messages there. At least the last bastion of civilization, Pac-Man World 3, can still be trusted to get it right.
Details of my sector's energy should be between me and Miss Pac. Thank you very much.
It's all over. It's all gone. This game actually came out only a month after that first Mario Kart arcade game, so I don't know what we're to believe about Ms. Pac herself. In World 3, she's pretty precise, referring to herself as Ms, but in Mario Kart, she calls herself Miss with reckless abandon. Might have to do with the change in voice actress, with Regina Reagan voicing our, I don't know, sphere? How many different ways can I possibly call her a circle? She's round. Maybe it's supposed to be canon that Ms. PacMan calls herself Ms, but Pac-Man didn't get the memo? Hopefully he gets some comments about it. That'll set him straight. So it seems that most Namco developed games, especially those from the early to mid 2000s, are a lot looser with the pronunciation of the word. Why might this be? One theory of mine is just that it's a Stigma thing. Steve Golson says they chose the name Ms instead of Miss because they didn't want to imply that our Pac family had a child out of wedlock. It was a taboo thing. But according to data from the CDC, a greater and greater percentage of births in the US have been happening outside of marriage. There's also more and more media depicting single parents as a normal, normal, acceptable thing, so the whole distinction comes across a little more meaningless these days. I mean, think about it. Would it make any kind of meaningful difference to you in 2022 if Pac-Man and Ms. PacMan were married, or if they were just, like, dating, or friends, or split up and co-parenting? It doesn't really matter so much, does it? World 3 was also developed by the US-based Blitz Games, so maybe this inconsistency is on them? Some of these weren't even made in the US, though. We'll get back to that in a second. The matter of education is also an important one. Me and a significant number of my native English-speaking friends didn't even know there was a difference between the two words. We'd either never been taught or we'd forgotten somewhere along the way. It's not like I'd never seen the word Ms. before, but it didn't really occur to me that it was anything other than another way to spell miss. The final thing, of course, is the fact that several of these games were developed in Japan. Ms. and Miss are English honorifics. It could be possible that some native Japanese speakers might not know the difference in pronunciation or the difference in meaning between the two. This is 100% uneducated speculation on my part, though, so please take it with a grain of salt. I just figure that if I, a native English speaker, didn't know it, then it could be possible that the distinction also gets lost to someone who doesn't natively speak the language. If we actually break down which games were made by which studio, we can see that every in-game instance of Miss, except for Pac-Man World 3, comes from a Japanese studio. Maybe it's also possible that some of the Japanese games are going for the alternative pronunciation of a less emphasized miss, leading to confusion. In the case of Namco Museum Volume 3, it sounds like they actually land on that quite well, so it might make sense. At this point, you might be asking yourself, why does any of this matter? And the answer is, truthfully, it doesn't. I got a lot of comments about the way I said a video game character's name, and then I saw a commercial that said it closer to the way I say it, and I got all petty about it. When I went back to that video, though, I did notice that I do explicitly say that Ms. is short for miss, so even assuming my pronunciation was okay, I still said something incorrect.
We're gonna change it back to Miss PacMan, but this time it's an abbreviation, not the full written out word.
Thanks for pointing it out, especially if you did so gently. As a matter of fact, I get a lot of comments about how I say things the wrong way, but I also get a lot of lovely comments about that and about other things. I might say Miss PacMan and Melk and Poyo Poyo, but I'm glad that people have stuck with me regardless. Even if I get things wrong now and again, I really do try my hardest, and I suppose it has to be expected that some things will slip through the cracks and that the comments will catch me when they do. I figured it would be fun to go over this incredibly minute part of Pac-Man history since I still get so many comments about it. I hope you got something out of it too. Oh, also, in case you're wondering, she is married. Unless, of course, there was a divorce arc we weren't privy to. Not that it's any of your business. I appreciate everyone who's kept watching me on the road to 20K, and I fully intend to keep going. All I ask is that next time I get something wrong, check the comments first to make sure no one else has pointed it out. I'm Jonii, and I promise I'll say Ms. from now on. Peace.